Hello, Christina. Christina Rasso. Hope you all are doing well, and thanks for tuning in. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you all and talk about this loser that was finally caught by New York's finest. So, in case you haven't heard, there was a black supremacist slash nationalist that went on a rampage and got on the R train on the New York subway and started attacking people. So he started out with some gas masks on his face. And I'm pointing this out because a lot of people don't think that black people don't suffer from mental illness and being losers as well. And of course, the media want to give them excuses of why he did what he did. But he finally got caught, and let's see how the sentence works out. So I believe his name is irrelevant, but I think his name is Eric James or Frank James, 62 years old, had nothing else better to do with his life but to go on a subway train and shoot people. Now, usually at that age, you're thinking about retirement, you're trying to relax and build your legacy and whatever and blah, blah, blah. Yet this person decides to go on a New York City subway car and starts shooting up people. Now, based on the images, maybe the Asian attack still continues. I don't know. Maybe that was the case with this person to continue going after Asians. I don't know. But for some reason, this guy decided to go into the subway car and do this. Now, what one black conservative on YouTube said, if you continue, and I'm talking to Americans all across the board, even globally, you keep telling blacks in general, well, it doesn't have to be in this country, blacks that they have no use or they're victims or they're so oppressed, you're gonna get much more stories like this. So it's only gonna get worse as long as you keep telling black Americans that there's no use. What are kids learning today? When I was growing up in the 80s, I learned about George Washington. I learned about Thomas Jefferson. In fact, there was no such thing as a President's Day. We celebrated Lincoln's birthday and we celebrated Washington's birthday. So now you're going to hold a person's past sins against them. We're not going to even start with MLK's sins. That guy was a big womanizer and an adulterer, but they won't dig up his past. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson did the original thing about owning slaves because it was an economic business, and they get brass for it for life. Despite of the fact there were black slave owners as well. Some of the biggest ones, I think I mentioned this on my live last night. The biggest slave owners were in South Carolina and Louisiana. Nearly 4,000, excuse me. And I'm not going to even get into Latin America and the Arabs. And when you think of Arabs, you're thinking of someone of lighter skin or probably around my skin tone with sandy hair, whatever. No, this person, a lot of those slave owners look like Wesley Snipes. But of course, we don't want to talk about that. So as long as a person like this, and I'm glad they caught him, I really do, because he was supposed to be, it was like a subway train in Brooklyn. Now I thought it was the N train. Charlie Kurt and what's his name that I also listened to at work, Matt Walsh, did a good job covering the story. Because if this were the other way around, this would be all over national news. I mean, they won't stop talking about it. But why is it subtle? Because it's a black person. I know lots of black people that hate non-blacks, specifically whites, because that's the part of the black culture. You must hate white people. So I'm glad this person. I'm glad they did catch this person, and hopefully this doesn't happen for a long time. But as long as you keep telling blacks that they're so oppressed, despite of the fact we're living in the most prosperous country in the world, black Americans are doing very well in this country. How is it really they are going to survive in Africa? Because I've taught students from Africa before, and they said we would die out there. And this was a person from West Africa, one of the most prosperous countries over there, besides Nigeria. And I wouldn't even say Nigeria is all that. Because if I pick an African country to go to, it wouldn't be that one. And when they do get here and they immigrate here, they do very well, much better than even white Americans, because they have a different mindset. They don't have this victimization attitude as most black Americans. You really think the average black person, I don't even believe in the 400 years thing. What is this about 400 years? This country is not even 240 years old. So where are they backtracking? So there's their first ignorance right there. I mean, really? This loser, because he was this black nationalist supremacist loser, followed other pro-black YouTubers, and maybe all of that got to his head. I mean, I'm not going to mention their names on here out of content, because I don't want to get flagged or, whatever the rules are. Listening to these people, and then it got to his head. But do you think a 62-year-old would know better? No, apparently not. Because I got relatives that age, and they're still worried about being called the N-word 50 years ago. That person is probably dead. And how they know that they may not run into that person if they're saved, may not run into that person in heaven and they may come up to them and say, forgive me for calling you that name. But they don't think about that. Couple of civil rights leaders. Let's go to Rosa Parks. She's a perfect example. All set up, did the back of the bus thing, when she sat in the black section, because people don't get her story right either. Sat in the right section, but she, moved and whatever, and they said she was tired, but she wasn't physically tired. But again, it was set up because she wasn't the only black person that didn't submit to that systemic racism at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. I know most black people want to still believe there's systemic racism, but Jim Crow was the last systemic racism in this country. And that wasn't even all over the country. It was only certain states. And they say, oh, blacks couldn't eat anywhere they wanted to. Yes, they could, but it was segregated. Even at this Woolworths place, blacks could eat in there, but they had to sit in a different section. And after all that, going through all that physical, because I don't think I would have participated in that nonsense, because I know how black folks are. Black people want segregation anyway. It was segregation again. Graduations. Certain parts in Harvard, they want to control the school that they didn't build, and want to tell these people what to do in their institution. They want segregated graduations. They want segregated dormitories. God forbid a white person say that. I had a colleague the other day say, what if we wanted a white student union? I said, well, you should have spoken up and said something. I don't care. I never participated in a black one, so why should I care if a white one exists on campus? I don't care. Some people do. Jesse. I really dread putting this person because he's leading people to hell. But a person like Jesse Lee Peterson, he came up with White History Month. July. That's a perfect month to be white. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Well, that's great. I mean, if they want a White History Month, they can go for it. I love July. I love 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays. That's why I'm so glad that Kirsty Nam was one of the people that didn't submit to the COVID thing. I heard Trump's address right at the Mount Rushmore. I was there my senior year in college. I know South Dakota. I've been to Crazy Horse. Yeah. I mean, those pictures are old. I don't have them anymore, but it was a fun time being there. I love this country. And living overseas a few times myself. And you know what really brought my attention? It had nothing to do with any traumatic experience. But I served in the Peace Corps in South America. The little things we take for granted, running water, toiletry, even some kids in certain countries want to fight for bottled water. They're grateful for that we pay $1 for. We can get a case for less than $20. When I got back here, after serving, whatever time I wanted, I appreciated this country. And all over the world, we want to think about this, all this nonsense about, systemic this and that. What's systemic this and that? The only people that can really talk about racism is my grandmother. And she doesn't hate white people despite of what she went through. And I don't think it, and the way she talks about it wasn't really that bad. Mississippi, Jim Crow. Clarence Thomas, Jim Crow. Condoleezza Rice, Jim Crow. And you honestly think that this country is not good to Black Americans? Well, not you, but this idiot that decides to go to New York City. Because he was also in Philadelphia, this U-Haul truck that he was supposed to have. He was in Philadelphia, in D.C. Now, if I remember correctly, between New York City and Philadelphia, It's about a 2-hour drive. DC, maybe 3 or 4 hours. No, that's Boston. DC, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours. So he didn't drive that long to go out there to cause chaos. So, yeah, again, we need more patriots to speak up. Now, thankfully, this man got called, but how many more will there be until this country says enough is enough? Stop with the hateful nonsense. So, yeah, that's all I have. I'm gonna go to church and have some fried chicken with my brothers and sisters in Christ, and they come in all races. So, Christina Red Soul, thanks for listening. I don't have a live chat tonight. I mean, I wish I did. So maybe I'll go back to uploads again. Um, God willing. So pray for our nation. Pray for our brothers and sisters suffering globally in the persecuted church. And I'll talk to you super soon.